sales situations and so forth, it could be weird. And sometimes, let's take where it could be, maybe the guy just had 2 bad appointments and everybody gave him a lowball and said, hey, I can't afford this thing. Well, maybe that happens to you in your school, right? You maybe do a tour with 1 prospect, 2 prospect, and maybe they're just not the right fit, or, you get the same objection. Thank you for tuning into the show, whether you are watching this on martialartsmedia.com or on YouTube, or listening while on the move on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. This is the Martial Arts Media Business Podcast. My name is George Fourie, and on this show, we interview top martial arts school owners, share success stories, share martial arts stories from great martial arts experts, and then we talk about lead generation and marketing strategies in between. So a quick heads up before we jump into the show. I just wanted to make sure that you are already part of our Martial Arts Media business community. It is our free Facebook group where we hang out every day. We talk about lead generation, marketing, and all things martial arts. You can jump in by either clicking a link close to this video or go to martialartsmedia.group. So not martialartsmedia.com, just martialartsmedia.group. That'll take you there. That's the best place for you to go after the show. We are in there every day, and there's a bunch of free resources that we have already uploaded into the group. Things about how to attract the right students, how to increase your sign-up base, how to retain more members, etc. So jump into the show. I will catch you in the group once the show is done. Enjoy. I'll speak to you soon. Hey, Georgia. Hope you're well. So I just had this real interesting episode happen at my house, and I knew there was a story and a lesson in the story there somewhere, and I've just been mulling it over in my head because it was a bit weird. It was a bit strange. And so I thought I would share the story and the lesson I got from it. So it involves a solar guy that sells solar systems, a blinds man, guy that sells blinds, and the martial artist, me. So anyway, we just moved into this new house, and we had 2 appointments on Saturday, and one involved the solar guy to tell us about putting in a solar system, and the other was a guy that's going to put a blind out at our al fresco area. Anyway, so we had the meetings scheduled 90 minutes apart, and the solar guy comes in, and I don't know about you, but I'm always skeptical of any sales situation. I'm always like trying to spot the intent. Where's this guy at? Is he just trying to make a sale, or is he actually going to actively give me sincere information? Right? So I'm always trying to spot the intent. Anyway, and so this guy comes in and he sits down and goes through the solar stuff and asks all the questions, and I'm just trying to get a clear understanding of what it involves. I don't have much knowledge on solar stuff. And anyway, so I felt got a lot of info from him, and was happy with what he shared. But 20 minutes in, the door knocks, and it's the blinds man, the guy that sells the blinds, that walks in, and he's scheduled for an hour later, right? So he's like 70 minutes early. Anyway, so I stay with the blinds with the solar guy. My wife starts speaking to the blinds man, and here's where the lesson comes in, right? So he builds no rapport with her. He doesn't connect. He walks out to the al fresco area, and he asks her, "What is your budget?" And kind of like you, maybe in your school, right? How many people just ask you, how much is it? They don't want to know anything. Anyway, well, this is the sales guy asking this. So it's kind of like an interrogation, like, what is your budget? And my wife is, she doesn't know what blinds cost. Neither do I. And so she just, pulled a figure out of thin air and just said, I don't know, $1,000. I mean, what do you want to say to a sales guy? Hey, I'm prepared to spend 10, 20 grand on blinds. Or are you going to go in on the lower margin, right? So anyway, she says $1,000, and he just bases everything on that $1,000 and changes his whole positioning, and just anything my wife asks, he just says, no, that's too expensive. No, that's too expensive. And so first up, the appointment was scheduled so that we could learn and understand what it is, what these blinds are about. And he gives us nothing. He just keeps, saying that's too expensive, that. But here's what he does. He starts giving us his opinion on solar. And so he starts telling us how solar is awful and it doesn't work.
it doesn't work for him in his circumstance, but he doesn't know my circumstance, right? So lesson number 2, he just assumes who we are and what we're about. Anyway, and this is where it gets weird, is he starts to depart and he walks into the lounge area and he starts attacking this poor solar guy. And we're standing back and like, what's going on here? And he's going on at the solar guy of what a ripoff it is and how it doesn't work for this and doesn't work for that. And my wife and I are standing on the alfresco area watching this debate between the solar guy. Hats off to him for really handling the situation really well. And this blinds guy just carrying on. Do you guarantee this? Do you guarantee that? You know, for a solar system he put in 10 years ago. And we're just standing back watching this debate like, that was kind of useless. You know, this guy's told us everything about his opinion on solar, but nothing about blinds. Anyway, so it just made me think, right? Like sales situations and so forth, it could be weird. And sometimes let's take where it could be, you know, maybe the guy just had 2 bad appointments and everybody gave him a lowball and said, hey, I can't afford this thing. Well, maybe that happens to you in your school, right? You maybe do a tour with 1 prospect, 2 prospect, and maybe they're just not the right fit, or, you know, you get the same objection. Then, you know, where does that come from? Is that something that you may be saying and it's bringing up that objection? Or by tour number 3, are you that frustrated with the previous 2 that you carry over that same energy and you handle it the same way, and now you just assume that they can't afford it either because you had such a bad run? So I think what you can really take from that, right, is if you see a few bad prospects and they're just not a good fit, remember to just make the space, right, and clear your energy when you go into the next one, because they are not the previous guys. The other thing is, you know, when people tell you the price, why do they do that? Well, the reason we did it is because we don't know what to ask, right? So same thing with your prospects. When your prospects walk into the school or inquire online, they ask the price because they have no clue about martial arts, right? So the only thing they're going to ask you is, how much is it? Because they don't know. And so it's your job to educate them, right? And then number 3 is just don't assume. Don't assume you know a situation, because our situation is completely different to him. Solar works if you are at home all day. I work from home. So yeah, I use most of the power, probably. I don't know. But in my case, it works. For him, it doesn't. But anyway, you can't just assume that a situation is the same as yours and not ask people the appropriate questions to get the right information from them. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. I found it interesting. I kind of repeat that story because it just made me think, wow, that's what can you learn from that and what can you take from that? And I think for anyone that's dealing with customers, and especially in a martial arts school where you are talking to people all the time, it's good to just have that mental check of treat every conversation as a new person with new situation that you can learn from, and do just that. Anyway, hope that was helpful in some way. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Thanks again for tuning in. Was it helpful? Did you get something of good value for your martial arts business? Then please do me a favor and let us know. Leave us a comment wherever you watched or listened to this, or just head over to iTunes and just leave us an awesome review. That way we'll know that we are on the right track, and we'll keep bringing you great shows with great interviews, sharing great strategies and tips. So if you haven't yet, now's a good time to head over to our group, martialartsmedia.group. That's the Martial Arts Media business community. I'll see you in the group, and I will see you on the next show.